All right, we are recording, so give me just a second here to start up. Okay. All right, good afternoon. It is Tuesday, the 12th, the 11th of October. And as we get started, yesterday I did send out an email to everyone, like quite a few of the students. I was having some problems with the update for the MySQL test, the movies database. So I had only partially written the test myself, so I went back and rewrote everything yesterday, and that's what I put out there on GitHub. So if you are having problems, all the CRUD works. You still have to get it to work for your database, and also you still need to make the about and the contact pages, etc. And that's due by midnight tomorrow if you have not already turned it in. All right. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about two different things, those being the MongoDB driver and Mongoose. The MongoDB, the difference between them, and there's a lot of differences, but to put it in non-database terms, most people prefer when they do something, if you give them a way of either doing something from a command line or doing it from a GUI, most people prefer the GUI. All right, and I look at it that Mongoose is more like using a GUI, even though when we use it today, we're not going to be doing anything GUI. But the driver, a lot of times, there's just a lot of stuff you got to do. And where there's a lot of stuff you've got to do there in in the MongoDB driver, in Mongoose, much of it is automated for you. So we're going to talk about both today. All right, we'll see if we can get this. We're going to write two projects, and we're going to see if we can get the first one done by the first break that we take. And then that'll be the MongoDB driver one. Then we'll go back and basically rewrite it as Mongoose. All right, let me double check just on there just to be sure that isn't John. No, it is not. Okay. All right. And again, as mentioned, that MySQL test with the movies database is due tomorrow by midnight. All right, I'll leave that at that. So what I would like you to do, and I'm going to change my share here in just one moment. All right. Like I said, today we are going to write two different projects. Neither one of them is like unbelievably fantastic or anything like that. Both of them hopefully will help you even realize even more why we're doing what we're doing. So to start with, what I'd like you to do is go to your desktop or wherever you've been creating these projects, right mouse click, do a new folder, and this new folder I'm going to call all lowercase Mongo, MongoDB underscore, what do we want here? Let's just say driver. So MongoDB underscore driver, all in lowercase. It's just so much easier when you make it in lowercase, in my humble opinion. All right. I'm not going to worry about Git. I'm not going to worry about any of that stuff in here. All right. The other thing that I want you to do, if you would please, is to right mouse click on your desktop, do your git bash here, and do a Mongodb or Mongodb, and also do a Mongo Shell. You should always do the Mongodb first, but please have both those up and running right now. Most of this will work even if that's not running, but when we get to a certain point, it must be up and running. So you might as well just start them up right now. Give you a second to do that. And what I will do is I will definitely, when we get done today, I will save both of these projects, and I will put them someplace, and I will put those out on GitHub just in case people have any problem, fall behind, or whatever. All right. So with that said, I'm taking for granted that you've been able to do all that. Open up your MongoDB driver. Again, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to immediately do my git bash here, and I'm going to do a git init just so that I've got this. So later I can put it out there. You can do the same if you want. By no means do you have to do that. All right. But the next thing that I would like us to do, pretty much what we always do, and that is let's come in and first let's do an npm init. But when we do the init, let's do an init -y. Like I said, this is just kind of a garbagey project to get us going. So we don't have to answer all those questions. Again, I'm just going to do an npm init -y, hit enter. That creates everything. Everything is fine. All right. So let me clear the screen. Couple more things because we always do these things as we get started. All right.
Your share currently is not on.
All righty. Thank you. All right. You see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so all I did so far was an npm init -y. All right, that's it. Hold on, we got somebody joining us. Okay. Hello, John. We've just started, and what I'd like you to please do is to go in and on your desktop, make a new folder. Excuse me. I just call the new folder MongoDB_Driver, all in lowercase. All right, we've done that. And then I would like you to also start up MongoD or Mongodb and Mongo SH. That's all you've missed so far. So I'll give you a second to catch back up.
Quick question.
Sure.
So whenever I start the Mongodb or in the git bash here, do I put it in the folder or just on my desktop?
No, you can just do it on the desktop. That's what I'd recommend.
Okay.
Now, much of what we go over here, just so you know, is online. I'm going to give you the URL, but I didn't like the way that they wrote the examples, so I rewrote all of them. All right, because I think that what I rewrote is going to make more sense to you. They used fields like A and values like 1, like A1, A2, A3, which I thought were just stupid. So I didn't do those. All right, so now that we're here, okay, now that we're here and we're under our Mongo driver, which right now has nothing in it except we did do our npm init -y, so we've got a package.json file. So if John, if you haven't done that, just please do an npm init -y. Then we're going to make our app.js file. Well, we could do it in a lot of ways, but I'm just going to say touch app.js. All right. And that makes a new file. To verify that it's made the new file, I can again do an ls -a. And you'll notice previously I didn't have an app.js, and now I do. All right. Now, nothing magical, nothing so far about what I've done, nothing. All right, but what I'm going to do now, I know I'll have to change my share. I will do that just a second. And that is what we just created there. Boy, oh boy, my stuff is just all over the place on my desktop. There it is. My MongoDB driver, I want to open that, but I want to open it up in VS Code. So give me a second here. Should have it open. Now let me change my share. All right. Am I right in assuming you can now see my VS Code on your screen? Is that correct, either one of you?
Yes.
Okay. So right now we've got an empty app.js file here, and we've got our package.json. I am going to open up the package.json just to change the index.js to app.js to get rid of, I mean, we've done this so many times. Okay. And can somebody, that's probably Clayton, can somebody let him in, please? All right. Just to review, because like I said, a couple of you came in late. This is what we've done so far. All right. We came in and on our desktop, we created a new folder called MongoDB _driver. We're going to create 2 projects today. The first one, we're going to use the MongoDB driver. So go out to your desktop, make a new folder. You're not turning this in or anything, but I called mine MongoDB _driver, all in lowercase. You could just call it driver if you want. It really doesn't matter. All right. Then make sure you've got both Mongodb and Mongo SH up and running. Now, John asked the question, and it was a very good question. Should we open up MongoD and Mongo SH from our folder that we just created, or do it from the desktop? I don't think it matters, but I've been doing everything from the desktop itself, and I haven't had any problems. That's why I'd recommend that you do that. All right. So after you've got those up, and I did what you see on your screen right here, I started doing this right from the git bash command line. So I first did an npm init -y, so we didn't have to answer all the questions. Then I went back in and changed that to app.js from index, changed my test scripts to these scripts, and just put in my name for the author. And then finally, we created an empty app.js file. So that's where we are right now. And just in case any of you are behind, I'm going to literally give you 2 minutes to go catch back up. So again, we're going to create 2 projects today. This first one is going to exclusively use things from the MongoDB driver. This is considered to be more of an archaic way of doing things, but some projects have still been done like this, so at least you've been exposed to it. After the break, we will go in and we will basically replicate this project, but we'll replicate it using Mongoose. And today will be the one and only day where we use the MongoDB driver. All right, everything else that we do, we're going to do in Mongoose. The plan for the rest of the week, just an FYI for you, is tomorrow we're going to start on a new project that we're going to do together, which is going to be a very simplistic to-do list. That we're going to create the to-do list, and then we are going to add a Mongo database to it. And then we will extend that a little bit. And as always, I'll get you to a certain point, then I'm going to ask that you finish it up. To my knowledge, as of right now, there'll be nothing due this weekend. All right, there'll be nothing due this weekend. It should give me a chance to catch up on my grading, and it gives you a chance, that you don't have to be doing homework this weekend. All right, so I'm taking for granted then that everybody has been able to get to this point. All right, now what I'm going to do next, I'm going to change my share. You don't have to do this, but I wanted to show you something on here. So let me go in and change my share. I'm going back to the internet here. And I'm going to go to npmjs.org or .com, whatever it is. And I want to show you what we're going to be working on, okay? Until we get done with the, until our break time. And that is MongoDB. You say, well, what is that? If I hit enter, it says here, the official MongoDB driver for node.js. Well, that sounds like something we'd be interested in, and it is. We are going to install it in just a minute. All right, don't worry about it right now, but I'm going to click on this, and it comes up, and there's most of the documentation that's right here. To be honest with you, in my humble opinion, it's hard to read. It doesn't do a real good job of explaining stuff. But if we go out to the homepage, which is it's at github.com/mongodb/node-mongodb-native, just right here. If I click on this And then I start going down here, down, 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 right here. Keep going, keep going, keep going. All right, sooner or later, this is what we've been doing so far. So we're about to go in and do the npm install. And if I've never mentioned this to you, notice it says you can do an npm install MongoDB, or you can do a yarn. Yarn is a product that you can use in place of the Node Package Manager. All right. I just have never used it because npm has always done just fine by me. All right, but just in case you ever see yarn, that's what it is. So we're going to jump through the stuff that's in this quick start. That said, when they have you add stuff in here, just so you can see it as an example, here are the records they have you add. A1, A2, and A3. I thought, as I mentioned earlier, those were just, for lack of better words, they were stupid. So I've gone back and rewritten this stuff. And once we get into it, we're going to take a look at it. All right. And we're going to write it ourselves. You got your choice. You can either code along with me if you want to, or if you'd rather watch, what I will do by the end of the period today is I will take everything I do for both these projects, put them in their own respective GitHub repositories, and push those up to the internet. All right. And I'll send you the URLs for each one. All right. So with that said, then I'm going to switch back, and for now, at least for a while, hopefully, we'll be able to just stay in and write some code. Okay, so I'm going back into my Visual Studio Code. All right, so I've done this. I made those changes. I already showed you those. So I'm just going to save, and I'm going to close that. I don't think at least there's anything else I need to do with the package.json file. All right, now, one thing we do want to do, and I'm going to bring up a terminal in here. So I'm going to do my view terminal, and right here in the terminal, we don't have to worry about Express. We're not even using Express right now. So we don't need our app.listen and all. We don't have to worry about that stuff right now. All right. We're working on MongoDB using the Mongodb driver under JavaScript, but we're not doing it yet in the guise of being inside of a regular project so much. All right. So with that said, and it's going to sound like with what I just told you, you might say, well, you just said that. Now no, just take my word for it. We're not going to include Express. So we're going to put in here npm I MongoDB. All right, that's going to add the driver. All right, when we do our next project after the break, all right, we're not going to be using MongoDB. We're going to be using Mongoose. All right, but I just want you to see this. So this is what we're doing right now. So again, we're coming in here and we're setting all of this stuff up. And then I'm just going to go and I'm going to hit enter. And you know this already, but if I do go back into my package.json, then now in here, it is added that dependency. Okay, nothing new there, nothing big there. That should all that should make sense to everybody. I don't have to clear that. All right, so let me get back down to here. And now we're in our, I want you to open up your empty app.js file. And I'm trying to be totally transparent here with you. So some of the information that I'm about to put in here is literally copied over almost verbatim from that website I just showed you, but not everything. That's why I'm going to come back and I'm going to type everything out myself. All right. Now, in the past, don't type in this. We've always done something like this. Const, we just put in MongoDB equals require MongoDB. We've always done MongoDB. We've always done something like that in the past. And we're going to do something similar, but not identical. Because when you set this up, when you use the Mongo driver, you have to do it a little bit differently. So what do I mean? We're going to put in curly braces here, Mongo client, All right, and I'm going to say that that is equal to require, and now we put in our MongoDB. I can't give you a fantastic explanation of why that is. Some of it is somewhat explained in the page I just showed you, but for lack of better words, I'll just say that's the way that it's set up. So again, just so you see this is in as a comment. So it's https://github. Let me get rid of this. github.com/mongodb/node-mongodb-native. So some of this code, like I said, is coming directly from here. Some of it will have to change because it's written generically. Some of it will have to change because, as I mentioned, they didn't use good field names and their collections stink. So that's first thing I want to do. Next, I want to set my connection URL. All right. What does that mean? Well, you basically, when you set up the client, it's expecting you, and we're going to make a client in just a minute, it's expecting a URL. So there's different ways of doing this, but I'm going to show you the way that I did it, and then I'm going to show you another way it could be done. Just 2 lines, and then we'll come right back. All right, I'll give you a second to type in both those lines. Now, a couple things about what you see on your screen right here. All right. The first one is there are actually, I recommend only using port numbers that go up to 10,000, but there are actually 65,535, 536, I guess, if you include 0 port numbers that you can use. Why am I telling you that? Because the default port for Mongo to run on is 27017. So we're letting it know that basically this is the default URL, and we're going to have to append onto that in just a bit, let it know about our database. Now, sometimes what you see is instead of doing it the way I did it, people will do it in one line and grab this stuff and put it right in here. You can do it either way. All right. I do it the way that I'm showing you right now, but it can be done either way. All right. Okay. The next thing is, and I don't want to keep changing my share here. All right. So I'm going to do something and you won't see it on your screen right here, but it's really and truly, it's okay. I'm changing over to my Mongo Shell and I'm typing in show DBs. All right. And I can see, because I was working on this yesterday, I've already got a DB by that name. So I'm going to get rid of them. In fact, I'm going to get rid of everything in here. Let's see. I'm just dropping some databases. All right. Oops. Okay. I'm just, like I said, I'm trying to make mine look like yours. I'm going to get rid of that. Acme. So right now, all I've got is admin. I'm going to get rid of the catalog too. So right now I've got in here, all I have in here, all right, are admin, config, and local. Those are the only three, and those are the ones that come with the system. Okay, and the reason I'm doing that is I want to be 100% certain that after I create the database in here, that I'm creating it brand new right now. All right, and that's what we're going to do next. So in other words, we want to set up our database name. I'll just say set up database. It's not really doing that, but that's fine. So you come in here and I'm going to say const db name equal, and we're going to keep working with books. So I'm going to put in books db. It's kind of an unwritten rule that most people who create databases in most any programming language put a capital DB on the end for database. By no means do you have to do that. All right, but it's something that's just often done. That's all. All right. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to connect to the server. In other words, I want it to go and connect to my running Mongo server on my machine. Now, we may or may not have talked about this before. If we didn't, shame on me. All right. But we're going to use something, and don't type in this because I'm going to get rid of it in a minute. But we're going to use something that's known as Async Await. All right. And what happened over time, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, bore you or anything else, but it used to be that when you ran, I mean, let's face it, when you run this stuff, if you were going out to a database server someplace, not your local machine, but if you were going out someplace and say it was in another country, or say you had a really slow internet connection, or both, it could take a little bit of time for you to connect to a database. Anytime you do operations with databases, it can conceivably take time. Since that's the case, you've got three ways that you can handle this stuff. It used to be you would just use callbacks, and you already have seen callbacks because whenever we've got a request and a response, we use callbacks. The problem with too many callbacks is they get nested, and you get into what's called callback hell. In fact, you can even go out, if you have any kind of interest, you can go out to callbackhell.com and see a simple one-page website that shows some of this stuff. Well, that's the way it was for many years. And then people said there's got to be a different way. So they came back in and they wrote another way that still does the callbacks, but it does a lot of stuff behind the scenes. It uses what are called promises. All right. And promises can be in one of three states. They can either be pending, all right, they can be resolved, or they can be rejected. Now think of this not in terms of computers, but of what we're doing now, but let's just think of it this way. All right. Okay, I go in and I'm a new student and I register at Rankin. Now, to my knowledge, in fact, I've even seen signs, I don't think they take checks anymore, but we're going to pretend for a second they still take checks. All right, so I come in and I sign up for some classes. My bill is $3,000. So I say, will you take a check? And Patrick says, okay. So I write a check to Rankin Technical College for $3,000. Now, technically then, until that check clears, I'm not a student at Rankin. I haven't been accepted yet. So my promise is pending, so to speak. If Patrick takes that check to the bank, they look it up and go, yep, no problem with that. He says, okay, he's in. He goes back to his office. Now that promise has been resolved. All right. He goes to the bank and they go, this person doesn't have enough money to cover $3,000. Well, then he goes back to his office and writes a scathing email or calls or does whatever because that promise has been rejected. So when you work with promises, you don't have all the where you put another callback and another callback and another callback, and you've got this callback hell. Instead, you end up using a lot of chaining that you do. And when you do this chaining, there's a lot of dot thens, dot then, dot then. And at the end, you might have a dot catch type of thing. All right. So again, why am I telling you this? People said promises were too hard too. So they tried to make promises a little easier by putting them, in front of them, basically what's referred to as syntactic sugar. Async await works pretty much the same way, except the syntax is better. So when you put in async await, you're going to see the code for it in just a minute. This says we want to be able to do things asynchronously. In other words, while you're waiting for this database connection to take place, all right, you can go on and do other things. But the await basically means, hey, wait a minute, until it's connected, don't do this stuff because we need the connection. So it's not only with the database that you use this, but you end up using async await a lot with database operations or file operations or any kind of an operation where you are making a request that could potentially take some time before you get a response back. All right, so I'm going to write here virtually everything that we're going to end up doing. We're probably only writing about 50, maybe 50 lines or so, something like that. And almost all of it is going to be inside of what we're about to write right now. So I'm going to put in here async function main. And then there's my ending curly. All right, now I'm going to put in a bunch of code. All right, we're going to add more stuff to this, but I want us to be able to see whether or not this is going to run, what we've done so far. So after your curly brace, we're going to put in 3 or 4 lines of code. We're going to basically call main. So main dot then we're going to go over what every bit of this means in 15 seconds. All right, so I'll give you a second to put in all of that stuff. All right, and I'll give you 2 minutes, and then we're going to go over what all of it means. All right, then taking it from the top, We are attempting, as you'd guess right here, to connect to the server. All right, once the connection has been established, then it's going to log, or it should log out to our console, connected successfully to server. And since we're now connected, we're attempting to create a new database connection. This DB right here, this DB, database dot collection. All right, so we're saying const collection. All right, so const collection equals db.collection, and we're going to call it books. Then here we're telling it to basically run all that stuff. All right. As I mentioned, you still get some of the stuff because what's happening in the background here is it's doing these promises. So we're telling it to run main. When it gets done, we're telling it to do a console log. All right. If for some reason we have an error, it's going to be caught there. So we'll print out the error. But whether this succeeds or fails, close our connection. Now, hopefully I didn't say that too fast. Hopefully it made at least a little bit of sense to you. Okay. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do a file save. All right. Then I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to type in npm run dev start. Oh, and it crashed. So let's see if we can figure out why. It says cannot find module MongoDB. Did I not? I probably didn't do the oh, I did do an install. Oh, I spelled it wrong. I spelled MONGODB. So let me redo it. All right. Hopefully you spelled yours correctly. So this should be MONGODB. My fault. MongoDB. All right. So let me do another file save. We come back up to here. And you'll notice, well, now it says here DB is not defined. All right. Why? Well, what that means is I forgot a line of code. Okay, so let's put in that line of code. I don't do this stuff on purpose. I make plenty of mistakes without trying to. Come in here and under your line where you've got your console log, all right, add another line of code because I left it off accidentally. And say const db equals client dot db, and then that DB name. That DB name is what we did up here, where we called it books DB. So add this line right there. I apologize for the omission. Okay, so file, save. Let me jump back here. And now, so notice, connected successfully to server. So it says we have connected to the MongoDB server. Now you might look at that and go, you know what? That was a heck of a lot of junk and hoops to have to go through just to connect. That's correct. That's one of the reasons the driver is typically not used, because a lot of the stuff that we're doing here, where we might be spending 5, 10, 15, 20 lines, we'll do in a line or two using Mongoose. All right. So hopefully yours came up with connected successfully to server. If it did not, go back, please, and double check all of the code we put in. Again, that should have been MongoDB. I apologize. But make sure you've got everything that's shown here, everything that's shown in here, including the line that I omitted previously, and everything that's in here. All right, now what we're going to do before we take our break is we'll get as much of this done as possible, is we're going to do a CRUD operation. In fact, we're going to do each CRUD operation right now. All right, so first thing we're going to do, and again, much of this, as I mentioned, is taken from this URL. But if you go and copy all that stuff, you're going to have to make massive changes because I changed around all of their documents. So let me put this in. I'm going to put in here 3 books. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is the create. Why? Because that's the C part of CRUD. So I'm going to do this, and I'll just shut up and type. I'm going to put these in an array. So that's why the brackets are there. All right. And again, I'm going to put in 3 books right now. Don't worry about what this means. We will go over all of it in a minute. I have no idea how many pages are in that book. I made all this stuff up. All right. So this is the first document that we're putting in. We're going to put in 3 of these. The first one has got, all of them will have 4 fields. The name of the book that we're about to put in, the author of the book we're going to put in, the number of pages that are in the book, and a little mini review. So I'm going to put in, like I said, I'm going to put in 3 of these. All right. To make it easier on myself, and I put a comma in at the end, I'm going to grab the one that I've done, and I'm going to put it in there 3 times. So you've already hopefully seen this one. So I'm going to go to the second one right now. It doesn't really matter that much what you put in here. You could literally just put in garbage for all of these. It really and truly wouldn't matter. So I now have 2 documents in here. The first one, which is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, 300 pages. The review is a Christmas classic. The second one is Tom Sawyer, author Mark Twain, 400 pages, also known as Samuel Clemens. And the last one will be Moby Dick. And I think Herman Melville was the author of that. And we'll make this, I don't know, 333 pages. Do not put a comma after the last entry that goes in here. All right. So taking this from the top here, this is what I had. And I'll leave that up there for just a second so that if you need to do so, all right, you can go in and put it in yourselves. So again, that's the first one. Here's the second. In fact, here's the second and third ones. Now, just putting that in there, that's fine. It will put them in there, but we won't be able to see them unless, repeat this, we won't be able to see them when we run the program unless we jump back into Mongo SH, which we can do. But rather than me having to have you do that and constantly having you watch me do a share back and forth, what I'm going to do is after the last record, after that final parenthesis that's in there, all right, I'm going to hit enter and I'm going to do a console.log and I'm just going to say inserted documents. All right. All right, something like that. I'll put a colon there. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. And then insert result. What should happen then, because we're going to run this in just a second. And when we do, in fact, let me do a file save. All right, and let's see. You notice it's doing a lot of reruns, but notice it's created 3 new records for me. All I asked for was just the IDs. All right. But I have now successfully added 3 new documents to my books collection. Now, did that totally make sense to you? I don't know. All right. One thing I want to do here is I'm going to come back down here to the bottom and I'm going to do a Control-C. I'm going to clear this and I'm going to run it again. So in fact, I'll wait on the run until we put in our next one. So that's the create. And I did an insert many because we put in more than one record. There is an insert one as well that we could have used. So we added 1 record, 2 records, 3 records. Okay. And literally that array became the parameters to insert many. And then when we got done, just to verify, all right, so verify result. That's what we're doing. So we've now done the C part of CRUD. I'd like to finish this, even if it means 10 more minutes till our break. All right, because we can get this done. And then after the break, we can concentrate solely on using Mongoose. All right, so make sure that you are not after that curly brace, but after this. So be right in here. So far we've done the create. That was all of this. All right. Now we're going to do the read. I mean, you don't have, I'm just delimiting it so you know where something starts and ends, etc. Okay. We're going to put in about 2 or 3 lines for the read, 2 or 3 lines for the update, 2 or 3 lines for the delete, and then we're basically finished with this part. All right. So what do we want to do here? Well, we're doing a find. So I'm going to do a const. I'm going to make a new variable. I'll just call it find result. You could call it anything in the world. But again, since it's a database operation, I'm going to say await and then collection.find. And I'm going to convert that into an array. Let's see, that's got to be, I'm sorry, inside of here has to be empty curly braces. There we go. Oh, what don't you like? Find do array. Not sure what the problem is, but we'll fix it in just a minute. And then a console.log found documents find result. Now before we run this, I want to fix that error. So what is it? It says comma expected. Await.collection.find. I've got an extra curly brace in there. There we go. So that's what it should look like. What are we telling it to do? All right, we're telling it to do a find operation. You already know what that is. We've looked at that already, but we want to show the results on our screen. Again, just so I don't have to keep going back and forth between the Mongo Shell and this. I just figured this would be a faster way, an easier way to do this. So I'm going to do a file save. I'm going to come down here. And I'm going to do my npm. Whoops, don't know what that did. Hold on. Okay. I'm going to do my npm run dev start. And if you look, here's the results of my find. So there's A Christmas Carol, there's Tom Sawyer, there's Moby Dick. Now, notice it's got them in there twice. All right, because I ended up running my earlier one because I foolishly took, when I did that create, I forgot to comment that code out. All right, I'm going to say this again because I want you to understand. Every time we run this now, if I leave in this line that says insert many, if I leave that in, it's going to add those 3 records again and again and again. So what I'm going to do now that I've done that, I'm going to come in and I'm going to comment out everything that I just did in here. All right, so I commented out everything I did for the create. Now I did the find, and you saw that with the read. So now I'm going to comment that out. We don't have to, there, but it's going to, otherwise it's just going to keep showing them. All right, so now we've done the C and the R from CRUD. Well, next is U for update. All right. And we'll just update one. There is an update many. So if there was some kind of a global property, for instance, we don't have that in here, but we could have added a field called is on sale, which would have been a Boolean field. And if we put all these classics on sale, we could have set all of them to true at the same time with an update many as an example. All right. But what we're going to do is we're just going to change the page numbers in one of the books. So we're going to say here, this is an update. So it's going to be update result. And again, remember these names like this, they're arbitrary. You can use whatever name you want. We could have used the same name for all 3 of these and just called it result every time. All right. But I'm going to say this is equal to, again, it's an await dot collection dot update 1. All right. And as you probably guess, or hopefully you can guess, I'm going to do this over multiple lines. All right. So what do I want to do? Well, you've seen this kind of thing before. I'm going to say name Tom Sawyer. Now that doesn't do anything. That basically is just letting me know what the name is. But I'm telling it for the Tom Sawyer book, what I want to do is a $ set. And I'm going to set the pages to 999, which is kind of a weird number, but I just want it to really stick out. All right. And I can bring that parenthesis up if I want to. So that's everything, but I want to make sure it worked. Okay, so I'm going to do another console log. And I'll say updated document. Update result, which I notice here I spelled it wrong. It's not up-a-date, it's update. All right, so this is await. There's no dot at the beginning. I don't know how I got one there, but I did. So now we're telling it, find the book called Tom Sawyer. All right, find the book called Tom Sawyer and update its pages to 999. All right, so let me do a file save here. There we go. And let me look over here. And it says insert result is not defined. Okay, I know exactly what that is. When I commented the stuff out there, okay, I needed to comment out that line too, and I didn't. All right, that was on me. So look in here. It says updated document, modified count is 1, matched count is 1. Now we're not printing out the data, but I wanted you to see this basically is what gets returned from the server. So it's letting us know, hopefully at least, it's letting us know that that worked. The other thing I want you to understand is this. Please look up on the screen here. Remember, since I ran this twice, and technically in here someplace in this mess, I've got 6 records. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We got 9 records. But since I only did an update 1, only that first one that we put in there that it finds with Tom Sawyer, only the first one, all right, which should be, boy, where are we? Once we get to the top there, only that one, wherever that one is, that only that one should change. All right. Finally, the last thing that's in there is a delete. So again, let me clear this, and I'm not going to run it until we get to that point. There's just a little bit we have to type in yet. So remember that if you grab this, that every time you run it, if you don't comment out the stuff that's going to basically do the create and then the run afterwards, you're going to add 3 records every time. All right. With the read, same kind of thing, but it's just a read, so it's not going to hurt anything. With the update now, we again want to comment all of this stuff out, because what we're about to do in here, what we are going to do right now is we are going to come in and we are going to do our delete. And again, this time I'm going to try a delete many to see if we can delete several copies, all of our copies of Moby Dick that are in here. So I called it const and put in here, whoops, I need to comment that out. Const, and I called it delete result equals, again, await collection dot. If we only wanted to delete 1, we could use a delete 1 here. Notice there's a delete 1 right there. We're going to try to delete many of them. So I'm going to do a delete many. All right. And I'm going to come in and put in here very similar to what we did before, except with a delete, all I have to do is say name Moby Dick. All right. That's it. And then when we're done, we can do a console.log and say deleted documents. And that's our delete result. Okay, so that's the delete. I don't know what I did there. That must have come, yep, that was from over here. So this should be working and should be our delete, unless I mistyped something. All right, so let me save that. And let me come back into here and do my npm run dev start. It runs and it says deleted documents. All right, it says count 18. I'm not sure why we got that, but it did. All right. Now, hopefully you've had a chance to keep up with me. All right, because literally there's one more line of code we have to run or write in there, and then we're finished. And that is when you get finished, all done here, we can just put return, done. Just to say that we're finished. Okay, and that's it. Now, I want to show you one more thing because we're already running over, but we're going to show you one more thing and then we're taking our break. Let me change my share, please. Right one. We'll find it just a second. That's the one I want. I'm hoping right now, what you can see on your screen is my Mongo Shell. Can somebody answer me? Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So you'll look and you'll notice that before I ran any of this stuff, all I had in here was admin, config, and local. I had catalog, but I removed it. So everything has been removed. So if I come in here and type in show DBs again, you'll notice, I don't know why I'm getting all that, but I've got books DB. So I'm going to say use books DB. All right. Then show collections. And there's my books collection. So if I do a db.books.find, all right, hopefully, what you're going to notice in here as we peruse our way through here, yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here, all right, but when we start coming through there and actually seeing the records, if you look, there's a bunch of Christmas carols, all right, there's some Mark Twain's, but what you should notice in here is all of the references to Moby Dick are gone. And the first instance of Tom Sawyer, I don't know why I got Cheryl, I don't know what's going on here with this, but we'll fix it, has got 999 pages. All right. Now, if you think to yourself, man, that's fine, but there's got to be a better way to do this. That's what we're going to do after the break. We're going to basically rewrite this using Mongoose, and we're also going to add another collection. And then for lack of better words, we're going to link the two collections. Remember, a collection is like a table. We're going to link them together. It is 1:10. I'm going to give you 15 minutes because I ran over so much, and we're going to come back at 1:25, please. All right, it is 1:25. Hopefully the share that you see on your screen right now, you'll notice that if we look through here, yeah, there's a bunch of junk, but there are no Moby Dicks. They've all been removed. And our first instance of Tom Sawyer was changed to 999. All right, so that did work. The only other thing that I want to say about this, I'm going to lose my share, but just give me a second and I'll get it back. Because we're going to start a new project in just a second. All right. And that is, remember that when you run this, because you get some really ugly, this is just the result from me running this. Okay. But when you go back into here, because it was only 60 some lines of code, what you want to do, first of all, is all this, you want to run this every time. But once we get down to here, this will connect us to the server, but you only want to run this once. All the stuff that's here, everything that's in there, you only want to run that once. After you've run it, you want to go and comment out the whole thing that says create from there all the way through down here. All right. And let's see that. All right. So you want to make sure all that stuff is commented out. Then we did the read. All right. And again, same kind of thing. All right. Because that'll read everything. Then we did the update. All right. I'll try to clean this up a little bit and add a few more comments before I go and throw that out on GitHub, just so you're sure that you understand what we're supposed to be doing. All right. Now, what I'd like you to do then is you can close this. I'm going to do a save and I'm going to close it. Again, I'll probably lose my share, but that's okay. All right. We're going to make a new folder. Let me get everything back here. So. All right, so we're going to make a new folder in here that I'm just going to call it MongoDB_Mongoose. So you'll have both of these. All right, so this will be MongoDB_Mongoose. Mongoose is Mongoose. All right, so I've got that. Again, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to do a git bash here, and I'm going to do a git init on this. All right, just so I've got that stuff is there. Okay. Let's see, and I'm also, whoops, from that git init, I'm going to open up that one more time. And I'm going to, oops, in there, I am going to create an app.js. We're going to do the same stuff we just did in just a second. So I'm going to come in here, I've got my git init, and I'm going to do a npm I, my mtm init minus y. All right, and that gives me my package.json. And I'm going to do my, what else? npm I. This time I want to add Mongoose. Right? And if you can't see this, I'm going to show you everything that I've done. All right. But when I finish with all of this stuff, when I'm done with it, what should then have happened is I now should, all right, in my new project, it's MongoDB _ Mongoose. I have a .git. You don't have to do that, but you should have a package.json, a node modules folder, and a package lock folder. All right. And I can even do this if I want to, just so for completeness, I can do my touch app.js, which adds that one as well. So now I've got that. So as we get started, and again, the only thing we're going to write code into is going to be this app.js. All right. So hopefully you were all able to do that. I'm going to say it one more time. Create a new project folder. I called mine MongoDB _ Mongoose, all lowercase. You can call it whatever you'd like, of course. And in there, I opened up a git bash here, and I ran an npm init -y to get my package.json file. I did an npm I mongoose to add that, and I did a touch app.js. All right. Now, before I go, which I'm going to do, but before I go and bring this thing up, like I said, I am going to do this. But before I go in and bring it up in Visual Studio Code, all right, what I want to do first is I'm going to change my share. I'm going to go back to the internet, and hopefully this will be one of the last times I have to do this. But out on the internet, okay, this is where all the magic happens. It's at Mongoose, Mongoosejs.com. mongoosejs.com. If you go out there and you get this, you're there. This is one of the better sites I've ever seen, not for being pretty, but for being practical and usually having virtually anything you need to find. And to find things, you go to read the docs. And you can see the stuff that's out here. Just so you see this, because the stuff that we're going to be concentrating on now will be defining your schema, creating a model. What else? That'll be it from in here, but they show you how you can create a schema. Now, the reason I wanted to go through this first is, if this was a classroom session as opposed to being online, one or more of you possibly could have your hands up now saying, wait a minute, you told us that MongoDB was schemaless and it didn't have the same restrictions that MySQL has. And that's true, unless you go in and create a schema. Then it is more like MySQL. We're going to create a schema because the idea is starting tomorrow when we do this to-do list, we're going to have a really, really simple database. It's going to have two fields in it, an ID and our to-do list item. That's it. But often when you are working with this stuff, all right, really, again, what my hope is within a month or so, we're going to be trying to build an e-commerce site together, all of us, and we will be using MongoDB as our database of choice. And all of the records that are in there for our product will look the same. There'll be different products, of course, but they'll all have a product name, a product description, a product category, a product price, etc. So they will look alike. So when you do this, you're going to see all this stuff. Don't copy this because we're not going to do it exactly like this. But we are going to go, we already put in Mongoose, so we are going to have to import that. All right. What we do afterwards is going to be different from what's in here. I'm going to give you all of it in just a minute. But I want to show you some stuff in here. This is an example of a schema. All right. How many fields are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? All right. Technically, there's more. So this is for a blog. Every blog has a title, which is a string, an author, which is a string, a body, which is a string. Then notice we have what's known as an embedded document. So these are people who are commenting on blog entries. And the comments have what? They have a date, a body and a date. Those are for the comments. Then underneath that, we've got another thing that says date. That's when this blog was posted. I'm not sure what the hidden there for the Boolean is, so I'm not going to even guess. All right, then we've got a couple of other things. They call this meta stuff, I guess, where you can vote on it and call it a favorite and whatever. But the point is, they're starting to show you how you create a schema here. Now, next, these are your permitted schema types. All right. Most of them, not everyone, but string, number, date, Boolean, and array, those should make sense to all of you. All right. Object ID should make sense too. So 6 out of the 10 should make sense. The ones we haven't dealt with yet are buffer, mixed, decimal 128, and map. We're not going to talk about those today, so you know now where to go to look at those if you want to. All right. Before you can create a schema, you basically come in, or after you create the schema, you come in and you create what's called a model. Now, what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be putting everything that we do is going to go into our app.js. What we have to get into, and we will hopefully starting next week, is partitioning this thing out. We will have a models folder where all of our schema information will go, a routes folder where all of our routes will go, etc. All right, couple things about this too. When we are working with this and we create the schema, okay? When you create this and you create the model, you've got to give it 2 parameters. One is the second one is the schema that we created earlier. It's got to be that same name, blog schema. All right. So that's basically how your schema is set up. This and this are virtually 100% of the time are the same name. And normally what you do is you take whatever you put before the word blog, and that's what becomes this. But what I want to mention to you is this is blog and this is blog. But when we create this, it's going to create a new collection that's called blogs, plural, not singular, and it'll have a lowercase b in it. How the heck does it do that? Well, I'm going to jump in again to my npm, write it again, my npm.js.org, and I'm going to put in here Lodash. And Lodash, it says Lodash modular utilities. This is a utility function that you can load. And what it does is it provides a lot of capabilities. And one of those capabilities is used automatically by Mongo to take whatever you put into there, what I just showed you when you create the model, and it creates a collection by the same name, but even though your model name should be singular, it pluralizes that name and it makes sure it's not capitalized. So this is stuff that's built into this. If you want more, again, there's a Lodash.com homepage that's got some of the stuff in here, and the GitHub page has got some more stuff in there. All right. So as we go through this then, they explain what this stuff is. We're not going to worry about statics right now. We may or may not get into this. Same thing with query helpers. Same thing with indexes or virtuals. We're hitting the high points, so to speak, or aliases. And we're not going to work with any of the options. But notice how many options there are. All right. But one of the things we are going to want to take a look at, and we're not going to do it this second, but what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to come back here to the docs. All right. And under here, so let me back up one more. So I'm just at mongoosdb.com right there. And I'm going to click read the docs again. Somewhere in here, and I don't remember where it is. Let's see if I can find it. Don't want validation error. But we'll find it. I think that I've got it someplace. I've got it marked in my notes. But we are going to not only create schemas, but we can put validation in on the schemas. Like what, Jeff? Well, like this. For instance, we might say that a book in our book collection must have a minimum of 10 pages, maybe no maximum. All right. We can come in and say, not only can we set minimums and maximums, but we can say if those minimums and maximums are not met, we can go in and we can write our own error message. And we will look at that. So this is all the stuff that we're going to start doing right now. All right. Before I do that, and you won't see it because I'm sick of screwing up these shares, but I'm going to come back into my database and I'm going to get rid of it. The way you get rid of the database is you say use followed by the database name to make it active, then db.drop database. And the D in database is uppercase, paren. Now, if I do my show DBs again, I know you don't see this, but all it says I have is admin, config, and local. That's all that I have. All right. So I'm going to come in and we're going to start building this second project. So I've got now this, we first had the Mongodb driver. All right. And now I just created this as soon as I can find it. And we've got our MongoDB _ Mongoose. All right. I'm going to open that one right now. So give me a second here. And I will also change my share in just a second. So let's see. This window, whoops. All right, so I've closed my folder, so there is nothing open right now. And now I am bringing in my Mongoose. All right, so let me change my share and we should be good to go. If somebody can give me a yell in about 10 seconds here and let me know, do you see up here, does it say MongoDB Mongoose up here?
Yes.
Okay, so we want to start working on our app.js. Everything we do from now on will be in our app.js. There's a bit to type in here. All right, we probably won't get it done before the break, our next break, but that's okay. All right, so I'm going to open up my app.js. I'm going to close this thing so I've got a lot of room to work with. All right, so again, make sure that if you need to, you've got a window open with mongoosejs.com. Make sure Mongodb is still running. Make sure Mongo Shell is still running. Okay, that's to start with. Now, you don't have to do this, but this is, don't type this in, but I just did this. I just did I did a show DBs. This is what I did where you couldn't see it. So I typed in show DBs. All right. And it showed me them, and I still had the books DB. So I said use books DB, and then I said DB dot drop database. I'm just showing you the command. So that's what I did. So I now have no books DB database. We're going to create it, but we're going to create it inside of here. Okay. So let me do another view terminal. All right. And if you look in here, I do have my package JSON. I've got all my good stuff in here. All right. But I'm going to come in because I don't think I put it in. Maybe I did, but I'm going to say npm I Mongoose. All right. We have to add that for what we're doing right now. Now, if I go back in and again, bring up my package.json. All right. I'm going to make my superficial changes that I always make. That's app. I'm going to get rid of this. All right. And you don't have to, but I will add my name. All right. And you can see I've got Mongoose in here. So hopefully, at least, I'm done with that file. All right. So all that stuff has been done. So let's start writing our app.js. Const. Now we can call it Mongoose. There's nothing special we have to do here. Equals require Mongoose. When we go through this next week, we'll bring in Express to this and everything else. I'm not worried about doing that right now. All right. So we've got that. And the way that we connect is pretty simple. We just say mongoose.connect. And again, let me close this so I've got some more room. There we go. So mongoose.connect, very similar to what we did before. Again, I could put this into a variable, as I told you. And again, it's / localhost colon 27017. But now what we have to add here is the name of our database. So again, I'll make it books DB. All right. And that should connect to the database. And if the database did not previously exist, it will create it, then it will connect to it. All right. Now, if I wanted to, I could put in a bunch of console log statements here that said I'm connected or whatever. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I went through a lot of that in the last one. This has already got enough typing to do. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do in here is we're going to create our first schema. Right now, we are not going to worry about validation. We're going to keep it really, really, really simple. So we're going to say that each book will have a name, and it'll be a string. Each book will have a number of pages, and it'll be a number. Each book will have a rating, and it'll be a number. And each book will have a review, and it'll be a string. Okay? So this right here with what we've just done That's created the schema. All right. But we need a model basically that's going to hold this. So the next thing we do is we say const book equal mongoose dot model. All right. And again, we will call that the same name as the variable name. So book, and then our book schema. All right. Let me hit enter a couple times here, there. So right now, what we've done here, is we have gone in and we have created a schema and then something that's we're going to be used to model that schema. So a natural question then would be, why do you need that model? Okay, I can even sort of see the schema, but why do you need the model? I'm going to answer that question right now. All right, we're going to go and we're going to create our first book. Now, for the names of these books, again, I used, A Christmas Carol, and I used Moby Dick, and I used Tom Sawyer, and I also added War and Peace. So my names for these books, pardon my French, my names suck. All right, they work, but they're kind of stupid names. So in other words, I said here, const WAP for War and Peace. And it's a new book. All right. And now we have to say what it's made up of. So the title, in fact, up here where it said name, that should say title. That's my error. Of course, I've got to make an error. It wouldn't be me. So changing your book schema, you can call it name if you want. If you'd rather have it name, make them both name. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to have this be War and Peace. The number of pages is, again, I made all this up. I said 678. You can put whatever you'd like in there. The rating, again, you can put whatever you'd like. I gave it a 4. And the review, I put a real page turner. All right. So we came in, we set up our schema. We set up a model based on that schema. And now we're creating, this is the first document that we're trying to put into the books collection. All right. Now, if you want to verify that this works, I'm not going to verify it because it involves me doing too much jumping back and forth, and I'm just not going to do it. All right. But if you want to verify that that works, all right, you can actually do a save on here. And I think the command would be book.save. I don't think it's books. It might be books. It's either going to be book.save or it's going to be books.save. But I'm just going to leave it off. All right. I'm just going to keep going. Now, why? Because I'm going to put in my other 3 books. So I'm going to have here const ACC for A Christmas Carol equals new book. And I'm just going to copy what we had here before and make a couple superficial changes to it. So this will be A Christmas Carol. Again, make up some number of pages. Make up some kind of a review and some kind of a rating. All right, so there's 2 of them. In other words, what I'm doing here is I am creating some documents. Now, normally we won't be doing it like this. Normally we will not be doing it like this. And what do I mean? Normally we'll be getting this information. It'll already be put in for us into a database for us. All right. But if you remember when you did your project, your MySQL project, you had to fill that information up. Well, typically you're going to have some kind of probably data entry person or somebody where you won't have to worry about doing all this. All right. and I put in one more just so I wanted to have several. So if I wanted to do some operations on them, I'd be able to. Whoops. And this last one will be Tom Sawyer. All right. So that, what I'm actually showing you right there is how we set our stuff up for the insert. Now, I want you to understand something, and that is this. We haven't inserted anything yet because we haven't run any Mongo command. We're going to put that in right now. So it doesn't matter if you are following along, you can put in one book, 2 books, it doesn't matter. All right. So when I do this, then I'm going to do a book dot insert, and notice if I say it, the IntelliSense is picking that up. So I have to tell it what I want to insert. All right. And again, if I go back to the documentation, somewhere under the documentation, there's a thing that says models, and it shows you all of the different inserts, updates, and deletes that you can use. It explains the syntax for each one, and it gives you an example. But what we need in here is first an array, all right? And that array has to hold all those books we want to put in here. And what were those? Well, they were War and Peace, and then we had, there was Moby Dick and Tom Sawyer, and A Christmas Carol, and Moby Dick, and Tom Sawyer. So that's the first parameter that we have to put in. That is an array of our books. When we run this, it can also at least possibly come back with an error. It can come back with an error. So I put ERR in there to simulate the error. All right. And well, we got to check for the error. We should, because if it doesn't work, there's really no sense in going on. So if there is some kind of an error, really just to keep it simple, all I did was a console.log of the error. All right. Otherwise, I did a console.log and I just said documents saved to books collection. Again, these console log statements are things you would put in as you are testing, but once you have gone through and done your testing, all right, you get rid of those. There's no sense in having those console.logs in there. All right. In fact, if you did leave them in, and if for some reason, when you ported this up to Heroku or wherever we're going to port this to, and if for some reason it showed those statements, that would probably just confuse the heck out of anybody running the program anyway. All right. So my question is, with what we've done in here thus far, because we've already typed in enough stuff, we connected or attempted to connect, and we told it if it wasn't there to create it. We created a schema with 4 fields in it. The system will automatically add the ID field for us. So we created the schema, then we created the model, then we created 4 books based off of that model. Then we attempted to insert the books, and if we had an error, we just logged it. Now, we don't have to just log it. We could have done a res.send status and send back a 404 or something else. I'm trying to keep this fairly simplistic. Now, with all of you, because I'm just tired of changing the share all the time. All right. And I wanted to get you out of here by 2:30 today, but it's probably going to be later than that because we'll take a break at 2:20. But I'm not going to keep switching. But what you can do right now, you don't have to do this, of course, but what you can do now, if you'd like, is go to the Mongo Shell, which again is Mongo SH. All right. Next, go in and do a show DBs. And what should show, amongst other things, is now your books DB should be there. All right. Next, you should do a use books DB. All right. And that should make it active. Be real leery. You might want to just call your everything in lowercase, because sometimes when I've done this, all right, and if I come back in here and I say this, use books DB, it makes a new collection with the DB in lowercase. So you may be better off making everything lowercased. All right. But I didn't, so I'm going to do what I did, which is this. And then if you do a show collections, you should see your books collection. And if you do a db.books.find, you should have those 4 records in there. So I'm asking the question, and unless there's a response, I'm going to go on right away. Is there anything that we've done in here so far that doesn't make sense and or you need further clarification of? Anybody? All right. Then we're going to go on and we're going to create another schema. Why am I having us create another schema? Because what I want to show you is how we're able to, you don't do joins in this language. You do not do joins, but you can link these together where it's going to almost seem as though we did a join. All right. So I'm going to come in here and do const. And this time I'm going to make an author schema. And again, what you call this stuff, like I'm calling it author schema, it's up to you. And I'm going to make it real simple. Each author will have a first name, which will be a string. We're going to manipulate this one a little bit later. They'll have a last name, which will be a string. And they will have an age, which will be a number. All right, so that's everything. That's the entire author schema. I made up the ages, just so you know. I don't want to look up all this stuff. All right. When we get to the point where we are building projects that matter, it would be kind of nice to put data in here that would make sense. In other words, if we were writing an e-commerce site that was selling books, we probably want to make this stuff, anything that we had in here that we've used so far that we could actually go and investigate and make sure that indeed we could find out the real information. I'd do that. All right. Next, I want to do my const author equals mongoose dot model. And again, it will be author. And again, it will be using the associated schema. All right. So now we can come in and we can create. All right. We can come in and we can create our 4 records. And I just used their last names. So I said const Tolstoy equals new author. First name, I think it's Leonid, but I'm not even sure. But that's what the name he's got now. Leonoid, I think it is. But again, I'm not positive. Make sure, because it's a thing people oftentimes forget, that after each field name you put in, you put a comma in at the end. but do not put one in after the last field name. So this will be the last name. Tolstoy. Again, a comma and an age. And I just said 66. Like I said, I made that up. All right. And that's it for that one. I'm going to copy this down and I'm going to make 3 more and just change the innards, so to speak. All right. So I've got Tolstoy, and now I'm going to make another one that I call Dickens. I better not do it like that. Then I've got Melville. Oops. And finally, we have in here Twain. So you'll notice now all of my errors have gone away. Okay. And again, if I'm not going to do this, but if I came in now and said authors.save, that should save all of it for me. All right. All right. Now, I don't want to do too many screen shares. I want to keep typing, but I do want to do one more because there's 2 URLs I want to show you. All right. And then I'm going to do my best to not go back and do this anymore. All right. The first one is mongoosejs.com /docs/API.html #model. And if you go to the docs, you can find this. Of course, you have to type it in, right? All right. So this is the model. These are all the different things that you can use. So notice, find by ID, find by ID and delete, find by ID and remove, find by ID and update, etc. Why are there so many finds? Because some of them don't return anything other than maybe an error code if they don't work. Other ones will actually return. So if you want to see the data that was updated or the data that was deleted, etc. But if you go out here to the documentation and you find the API, there should be a thing called model. I don't know how many there are in here. If you told me there are a good 50, I definitely believe you. All right. But that's where I went to find out all this information that I'm showing you right now. All right. The other one that I want to show you is going to the same place, mongoosejs.com/docs. I'm going to get rid of the API part and I'm going to type in here validation.html. And of course, again, I misspelled it. Doggone you, Jeff. VALIDATION.html. Why don't you show it to me? MongoJS.com. Oh, now I missed the docs. Okay. There we go. So this has got the different kinds of validation that you can do. All right. And you'll notice if I go to built-in validators, this is how you change this stuff. So we're going to go in and change our schema in just a moment. Any field that you want required, you can put the word required in there. All right. Now, when you do put the word required in there, if you don't put anything in for that field, you'll get an error message. When you want to put in customized error messages, for instance, if you look at the one that's in blue, for eggs, the minimum is 6. If you put in a number that's 5 or below, you'll get an error, and it'll be an error from Mongo, but the actual error message that'll come out will say too few eggs. The reason I'm telling you this is you can write your own customized error messages, which especially, again, this would be something you would end up removing probably, for a production app, but while you're testing, it's something that could be very helpful. So there's required, there's minimum and maximum. All right. You can set up assertions so you can run different things, and if it doesn't work, have it print out error messages. All right. Here's more on those custom things. All right. Here's an enumeration. So notice that in this case right here, for the drink, all right, it's expecting that you're either going to put in coffee or tea. If you don't put in either one of those, so let's say I put in Sprite, that should come back then and say Sprite is not supported. All right, so there's all sorts of ways in which you can use this stuff. If you are working, and I don't know why, but they don't show it in these examples, but if you're working with a field that's a Boolean field, all right, you can put afterwards, you can put, if you want the default, for example, to be true, you can put a bracket, all right, and then the word true or the number 1, comma, then you can put a message to come up if they don't mark it true. So there's a boatload of junk in here under these errors is what I'm telling you. All right. I am going to expect, not when you do your next assignment, but as we go on in here and we write things that are more complex, that you will have things like that in there so that you can show a prospective employer that you know how to write, how to customize the schema and how to write customized error messages. All right, enough. So let's jump back into our app.js. I'm going to do that right now. Okay. Which means I have to change my share to go back to here. All right. So we're right here. So we've just set up our 4 authors. I said if we wanted to, we could do that authors.save, but instead we're going to say this, and that is it's going to be an author dot insert, and notice it again, the IntelliSense picks up an insert many. And again, we have to have in here what? I don't think we did this one yet, did we? We did the other one, I think. Yeah. All right. But we're going to come in here. We're going to tell it what we want it to insert. All right. Well, it's going to be this thing that's going to have in here what? Well, we had in here Tolstoy, and we had Dickens, and we had Melville. I don't know how I spelled it. It doesn't, but it's got to be right. And we had Twain. All right. And just like we talked about before, it is possible when you do this, you could have an error. So you have to account for that. How did I know this stuff? Again, I went out to what I showed you before, that being the docs. And I looked in there for the one that seemed to make the most sense to me in here. So again, all I keep saying here is if there is an error, just console.log the error. All right. Else, I did a console.log, And I just said, documents saved to authors collection. And again, I can't impress upon you too much when I'm saying this stuff. This is the kind of stuff you want while you're testing to make sure something works. All right. But if this is production, I don't need any of this. All right. All I need is if there is an error, and I probably wouldn't want a console.log. I'd want to do something else. All right. So that's some work with inserts. Before we go on, which we're going to do in just a minute, before we go on and start playing with our schemas, all right, let's talk about how we could do a find. All right. Now we can do a find either on our books or we can do a find on our authors. Doesn't matter. I just pick books. So I'm going to put in here, again, this will be a find. And I put in here book.find. And when we do this, we can get either an error back or we can get our results. We can call the results anything we want. Anything. I just called it books because that's what we hope to get back. But you could call it result. You could call it whatever you'd like to call it. And I said again, if there's an error, just console.log it. All right. And else. And I did a console.log. We don't have to, but I did a console.log of books. Again, when you are actually testing this stuff, when you are actually going in and testing it, what you're going to want to do is two things. First of all, you're going to want to go back into your Mongo Shell, or in just a couple of weeks when we get into working with Atlas, all right? And you're going to want to run commands in there to make sure that indeed your stuff is there. The other thing is, as of right now, every time you run this program, it's if you don't comment out that author.insert many that's there and that books that's insert many that's there, then every time you run the program, you're going to be adding 4 new books and 4 new authors. And when I say new, you're going to be adding the same 4 again and again and again. So again, it would be your responsibility to comment that out. So again, when you got back, after doing all that stuff, you should again be able to come back in here into the Mongo Shell, do your show DBs, your use books DB, your show collections. And now when you do this, you should indeed have, all right, all that information. So right there, that line is basically what we're doing right here. All right. Okay. Let's see. Am I missing anything? I've got some notes that I wrote here. So now, what if in here, I'm just saying to you right now, what if we didn't want these to show on the screen like this? Or, there's a lot of information. There's only 4 fields, but for every field, it's showing the ID and it's showing the name of the book. It's showing the number of pages in the book. It's showing the reviews, the rating, etc. 4 or 5 fields. And what if I didn't want all that stuff? And the point is, I don't have to have all that stuff. So I could have come in here and done this. I could say books.for each, and I want to go through my whole book collection here. All right. And I could have come in and now said, instead of this, let me get rid of this and move it up here. I could say in here, book.name, or, well, it should be name, I think. All right. Didn't we put that in there for the book? There shouldn't be a last name for the book. That's authors. So books, oh, it's title, right? Not name, my error. So we could say here book.title. Then what should print out are just just the titles. All right. Now we did all this. Let's see. We did our books. We did our authors, everything. As far as I can tell, I don't think we're missing anything. All right. But let's talk about how we might want to change this book schema. All right. So I'm going to pop all the way back up to this book schema that we did a long time ago up here. Right there we go. And talk about what we maybe we don't want to change anything, but I'm going to pretend at least we do want to change it. All right. So the way you change it, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to change each field. All right. And now you've got to come in here and you've got to put in the word type. So I have to tell it that it is type string. All right. And I'm also going to put in here required. Oops. Don't know what happened there, but somehow this is stuck. There we go. So required. And I'm going to say, if you leave it off, you'll say number of pages. I'm sorry, should say title is required. Title is required. Okay, again, that's my message. You don't have to line things up, but if you're anal like me, you do. All right, then we put in this. So now we have finished up that, nope, comma. We have now finished up that one. All right, I'm going to make each one of these, let's make title and pages required. Maybe it's a brand new book and it doesn't have a rating yet and it doesn't have any kind of reviews. Maybe they doesn't have those yet, so we won't make those required. But let's go into pages here. And again, as soon as you bring this down, you have to say the type. So it's going to be type number. All right. And again, we'll say required, just like we just did. And again, I will say true. But now I will say number of pages is required with a comma. And now I'm going to put in a min and a max. I might not even know that there are these. But for the min, I'm going to say, hey, any book has got to be at least 10 pages. And for a max, hey, there should be no book that's more than 1,000 pages. I made that up. But quite often, as a programmer, what will happen is you will be given, or somebody will tell you, here's the requirements. All right. Or you'll get you get a copy of some of the data that's in there. All right. Now we've got a rating and we've got a review. And for the rating, we're not going to make it required, but we're going to say here type number, type number, and I'm going to give it a min and a max. I'm going to say when you rate it, it's got to be between a 1 and a 5. All right. And then finally, for the review, I'm going to just leave that one the way it is. I don't have to customize when I'm recreating the schema. So this right here, I just want you to understand this. Maybe it's real simple. I don't know. This right there, whoops, that is the same thing as saying like that. So if the only thing that you're putting in there is the type itself, there's no sense in doing that. All right, if you wanted them all to look alike, I guess you could do that. All right, but there really is no reason per se for doing that. All right, now when you test this, when you go in to test this, what would you want to do? Well, you'd want to go and leave the title off of one of these. Then maybe on another one, you'd want to leave the number of pages off. Then you'd want to put in a pages that is both less than our range of 10 and greater than our range of 1,000. Then you'd want to put in a rating that's less than 1 and one that's greater than 5. You also want to put in valid stuff because when you test, remember the idea behind testing is you want to find bugs. All right. But you also want to test to make sure that your stuff actually does work. All right. So I'm not going to do the author schema. I've done it in my notes, but I think hopefully you get the idea. We could go in there and make this required. We could make this required, and probably I'd make that required, or maybe not, but I'd probably put a min in there and a max. And for the minimum, I'd probably give it some, I don't think there's many authors. Maybe even I put in 10 for the minimum age and the maximum like 125 or something like that. All right. Okay, let's quickly do two more things and then we're going to pretty much call it a period. All right, that is, I want to be able to, I've shown you the create and I've shown you the read, but I want to show you the UD in CRUD. All right, so I'm going to come down to here, down to the bottom. This is just where I've been putting stuff. So that was the find. So in other words, we'll call that the read. We did the create in a bunch of places. All right, but here where we do the insert many, all right, right there. So that's our insert, or I should say our create. So there's our create, there's our read. So let's do our U and our D to make up the whole CRUD. So next we'll do an update. And then when we get done with that, we'll do a delete. And then I'm going to let you leave. All right. So I'm going to do it on the books. I'm going to do a book dot update 1. All right. And what do I want to do? Okay. Well, I'm asking you this question. You don't have to answer it. But if I said to you, what field is going to be unique in every one of these books, you're all smart enough that you'd say the ID or the object ID. I could go back and find that object ID if I wanted to do that. I could go back and find that object ID. That way I'm sure I am only updating the one record I want to update. All right. Now, one thing I know that's in here, one thing I know is that I know that every book title is unique. So for instance, if I want to come in here like we did before, we'll pick on somebody else. So I'll say name, and we'll use, I'm sorry, it's title. I don't know why I keep typing in name. Title, and we'll again use, we used Moby Dick before. So I'll use War and Peace. War and Peace. All right. So there's that. And what do I want to do with War and Peace? All right. I need to set the field that I want to update. So I need to come in here and I need to do a $ set. And what do I want to set? Well, it's pages. And I want to set that maybe to 800. All right. I typed in a 700. That's fine. Something like that. All right. Now it's not liking it, so why? It says type annotations can only be used in TypeScript. And that's because that should be a curly brace. Let me get rid of all this. And so should that. All right, now it still doesn't like something. We're going to fix it in just a second. All right, not sure what the error is, but we'll fix it in just a minute. Now, when you do all that, again, what can happen when you do this is, here's a surprise, you can get an error. All right, so you can get an error. So just like we've been doing, all right, just like we've been doing, all right, we can come in and we can say, if there's an error, I'll just console.log it. Else, I'll console.log record successfully updated, or whatever message you'd like. Now I'm wondering if in here, if this isn't needed. Okay, I think that's the right syntax. Okay, I don't think we need to say set when we use the update 1. I could be wrong. I'd have to go back and look in the documentation. So that should work. And then we should have done the update. So now we've done the C for create, the R for read, and the U for update. So the only thing that's left, and you know this, is the delete. All right. Okay. And again, there's different ways that you can do this. I'm going to use a delete one. So I'm going to say a book dot delete one. And again, normally in here, you'd put in the ID. All right. But I'm just going to use the title and pick on Tom Sawyer. All right. And as always, as we do this stuff, you need to put this, since it's an object, has to go within our curly braces. All right. And it can produce an error, just like we've been seeing here. All right. I'm going to just steal the code from here. Okay. The same code that we used before, and just change the message. So if there's an error, otherwise record successfully deleted. All right. Now it's giving me an error here, which seems to say I've got either one too many or one too few parentheses in here. So, all right. Means that in here someplace, I've got a paren in that I don't need. It might be there. I don't know. All right. So what we've done here, and I'm sorry it was a marathon session, but we came through, we used Mongoose, we required it, we connected to it, we set up a schema for books, which we later modified. All right. We set up a model of which we could base our data. Then we inserted that data. All right. Then we did the same kind of thing for author. All right. Now there is one more thing to do. This is enough for today. I'm going to pick it up here tomorrow. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to associate the authors with the books that they write. All right. So I will bring this one here that I'm writing right now. I will bring this one up when I start tomorrow, but it is 2:30, and I promised, because I've been asked by 2 people in the class, to make these lectures not go as long as they had been going. So that's what I'm trying to do. All right. Anybody have any questions before we call it a period? Anybody? All right. Hopefully you're starting to get something out of this. We're going to pick it up right here tomorrow. When we get done with this, we're going to start writing a brand new app together as a class where we will be writing a simple to-do list, which after we do that, we will connect it. We will create our own MongoDB database, and we will connect to it so that our to-do list stuff persists. All right. See you tomorrow. Thanks.